Welcome back to Just Giants with Grump and the Cranky Fan, the best damn podcast for the best damn football team. I am your host, the Football Grump. With me, as always, is Mike, the Cranky Fan, and we are here after a historic New York Giants comeback. 31-28, they defeat the Cardinals out on the West Coast without their starting left tackle. Cranky, where did you watch the game? How did you enjoy the game?
I can tell you, Grump, it was an exhausting weekend for me, mentally more than physically. Saturday night I was in Gainesville for a shocking Florida victory over Tennessee, where we kind of dominated, looked really good. I get back, I was at a bar in Woodside, Queens. Shout out to Donovan's, um, like it's an old school corner bar, underneath the L. Watching the game there, Jets and Giants going on at the same time. And I honestly was in a bad headspace because my fucking Rays had a chance to, you know, do some real damage. They were playing Baltimore a weekend and they blew a game because of yet again managerial incompetence. So they blew probably their last shot at the division. So that really, I was, fired up, annoyed. And it's hard to all of a sudden switch your brain to, okay, it's 4 o'clock, Giants. So I was a little head foggy in the beginning of that game. And then when it just all went south really quickly, I was just in one of those, what the hell is going on with my life moods. So, and then obviously with the big comeback, I was, and again, kind of like in this little funky, like, I don't know what to think of any of this. And I think that's the one thing I texted you last night, Grump, was I don't know what to make of any of this. And you were just responded, same. So let's try to make something of this. And
So shout out to Donovan's for getting you into that not knowing what to think. Sounds like they did their job. Um,
great burger, by the way.
nice. A good burger is important. I was at a brand new bar that was recommended by my boss. Had never been there before. It also made pizza in house. It was delicious. So got to enjoy all of Sunday football there and the Giant game. And during the Just Giants review of the Giants' victory over the Cardinals, I will be drinking more beer by Zigmeister Brewing. Why am I promoting a beer for no money? That is because they are a relatively small company that makes a quality product, and they deserve advertising by word of mouth from their satisfied customers like myself. And that's a situation that's not completely unlike the podcast you're listening to right now. So please follow my lead, drink a beer from Zigmeister Brewing, and tell a fellow Giants fan about the Just Giants podcast. I did not drink any Zigmeister yesterday. I had a whole lot of Miller Lite, and they are not a small company, so they get nothing from me. Um, so I'll tell you it's terrible, but I had a great time. It felt like a really good football Sunday. Week 1, I had to get ready, leave for the stadium. You got stranded in the airport. This one, I got to the bar, 1 o'clock, watched every game simultaneously on every TV with a good buddy, had some good food, had some good drinks, got to
Can I
watch the Giants game and come
can I
home.
interrupt something real quick? What do you think of the new Red Zone channel? Were you watching that? Was that on any of your TVs, or have you watched any of it yet?
I did watch some of it, but not yesterday. I watched that on. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't watch the Red Zone. I don't have that. Is that like Verizon? And then the
It's,
NFL
it's everything.
Network does something
It's
different, right?
it's everything now because they got rid. And now I want a real quick gripe about the
Go
new
ahead, you
Red
jump
Zone
into it
channel.
because I don't really know. Yeah.
Yeah, because I used to have DirecTV, and they used to have two different Red Zone channels. They had one that was specific to DirecTV and one which everybody else got. And now that there's now on YouTube, they got rid of the other one, so there's just one. My one gripe with Red Zone channel now is that they got rid of having like the 2 and 3 games going on at the same time. And they do this thing now. They just whip from game to game to game to game super, super fast. And to me, it's a little jarring. I miss having, if there's 3 games going on in the red zone at the same time, 3 screens, and it goes to two, then it goes back to three, then one, then two. So if you are listening, YouTube, let's bring it back to the way red zone used to be, because I'd rather see two things going on than having my head spinning because you're flipping in 10 games in 13 seconds. That's
Fair
all.
enough. I mean, I got to watch everything on like 30 different TVs, so
Yeah, it's nice.
It's essentially what you're asking for. In
Yeah,
any case, Giants come out of this out of this game with a victory at some kind of heavy cost. Saquon Barkley with an ankle sprain suffered with like a minute left to go in the fourth quarter, and starting left guard, right guard, wherever they need him, Ben Bredesen with a serious concussion.
yeah,
I feel like I was the only one who saw it immediately in the instant replay. Um, they were kind of like, oh, I don't know. Did his legs buckle? Did he hurt his legs? Like, no, his legs buckled because he has no clue
yeah.
where he is right
Lights
now.
out. That's
Yeah,
funny.
he just smacked his face into the helmet of another player while getting rolled up on. So it's kind of like this involuntary fall. I think both of these guys are declared out already for Thursday. I know Barkley is. I'm pretty sure about Bredesen. I think it's going to be an uphill climb for him out of the concussion protocol. But thankfully, because of the Thursday game, he has like an open 10 days or something before the Monday night game against Seattle. So there's,
Yeah.
I would say, legitimate hope for him to play that game.
And really, the last thing we needed was more offensive linemen going down. And
Yeah, Thomas and Ojolari still nursing hamstrings after this game. It'll be interesting to see in what capacity they're able to go and what sort of coaching decisions are made for a Thursday night game in which I think most of the world expects a loss. So I just think it'll be interesting, and whether they go balls to the wall, we don't quit, or
yeah,
if they play conservative. I'm legitimately interested, and I think that you can make a case for either.
sure.
All right, so jumping into this game, let's start with the offense because I think that's probably going to be. I would assume that this is going to be like the heavier concentration on here.
Is it?
I don't know. I think so because it really, this is where the tale of two halves really is in the offense. First half, this offense was incredibly disjointed. It was a lot more of the same. I don't know how anyone could not be getting frustrated watching. I don't know how anyone could not be frustrated watching the first half. It was infuriating to watch balls being dropped, momentum being gained and lost really quickly. It seemed like some conservative decision making, and I'm not saying play calling, I'm saying decision making. It felt like things just felt double clutched all over the place, and nothing felt like just letting it rip. None of the first half felt like letting it rip to me, right? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm self-contained to that. But on the flip side, I will say the second half looked incredibly let it rip, and they looked loose. They looked like they were playing. Suddenly, I don't know. It just looked bad. Daniel Jones ended the game 26 of 37 with 321 yards, 2 touchdowns, an interception, and 9 carries for 59 yards and another touchdown. I gave Daniel Jones a star for this game. I think Daniel Jones deserves a star for this game. I think that so much of the second half can be placed on him. But that said, I don't think he played a perfect game. And I'll say even in the first half, he was not, he was, I don't know, just as much to blame. But like he was slightly off as well. Some passes thrown behind guys. I do think that he chickened out on one throw. It's kind of hard to tell, but it looked like until the All-22 comes out, it's hard to tell. It looked like he had Hyatt deep while he was kind of escaping stuff and dumped some stuff off. But the second half, he looked lightning. Good decision making. He looked really good commanding the team. He looked good running the ball. A lot of forward momentum in the second half. What did you think of Danny in this game?
Oh, I mean, I give him an absolute star in this game. I think, this is the fifth year we've had Daniel Jones now, and I think everybody has differing opinions about him, whether, you know, he's an average quarterback, a good quarterback, not good quarterback, we overpaid, blah, 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 blah. But this is why we got Daniel Jones and the comparisons to Eli Manning, a guy who's even keel, who doesn't get too excited, who doesn't get too frustrated. And I think that's what happened in the second half. I want to go back to your point about the first half with the offense. I think personally that this coaching staff is to blame a little bit for it because I think the tentativeness in play calling is a result of being so spooked with this offensive line that I don't think they were running their normal game plan on offense. I think, and we saw it in the second half. I mean, we Daniel Jones is a very accurate on the medium to deep pass. We got Hyatt to be a deep threat receiver. We got all these receivers to open up this offense more, and I think the game plan for this was a combination of just fear of this offensive line, especially with Andrew Thomas out, and possibly looking over and saying, "Oh, that's Arizona. We don't have to do much." Well, a funny thing happened. Arizona came to play, and we've said this on the show 1,000 times. Players don't tank. Organizations may tank, players don't. And people were saying things like, "Oh, in the second half, oh well, they realized they had to tank and blow this game." That's not what happened. I think what happened at halftime is, they took the governor off this offense and said, "You know something? If we're going to go down, we're going to go down fighting." And I don't think there's any fiery, pep talk at halftime or speech. I think it's just, let's just run our offense and see what happens. And that first deep pass to Hyatt set the tone for everything. Um, the Giants are a better team than Arizona, top to bottom, and letting the talent do their thing means you're probably going to win. So, and momentum is a big thing in this league. It is in college and the NFL. And then once the momentum started, it just built upon each other. The confidence goes. Daniel Jones got confidence. The receivers got confidence. The patchwork offensive line got confidence, and it all worked out. So this is Daniel Jones. When he puts together his resume for whatever, whether it's his next contract or who knows in 10 years his resume for Canton, if he ever gets to be at that level, this is one of those games he can point to and say, "Look what I did in this one," because this is a Mount Rushmore for Daniel Jones games.
I would agree with that. This actually felt a little bit like, in some ways, his first ever game in Tampa.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah,
You get a little bit of
absolutely.
that feeling. I mean, he looked a lot better. I mean, the execution was out of control. You said something. First of all, I gave Jalen Hyatt another star. I know he only had 2 catches, but 2 catches on 2 targets for 89 yards. You said it's a momentum heavy game. That's something that Jalen Hyatt also said after the game, and it's something I'm going to echo. It really is. And I think that being the first play of the third quarter meant everything to that. It was just an absolute onslaught attack. A 3-play drive. You throw the bomb to Hyatt, which, by the way, a slightly better throw, and that's a touchdown pass.
Yeah.
I don't think a frustrating thing, as you were saying, man, I'm all over the place. A frustrating thing you were
Okay.
saying about the coaching staff being a little bit conservative or whatever. I honestly think that Daniel Jones doesn't have a good beat on Hyatt's speed yet because it just don't have the same opportunities to let it rip downfield in a game situation. That throw, it's not a bad throw, but it caused him to have to tempo down and make that catch, which led to him being tackled. Doesn't matter because they followed up with like a rollout play to Darren Waller, and then I think Danny just tucked a zone read and
Yeah,
ran it in right after that. And
that's
then
correct.
the other thing you were saying about Daniel Jones being even keel like Eli Manning, I agree with, but there are moments where Danny Danny gets fired up. Um, and he kind of ran into the end zone there, and then he turned around. He saw his teammates getting ready, and he spiked the ball kind of half-assed, and then gave a nice helmet shove to Darren Waller. But it was more the second one that he ran in that got called back for a holding. He threw the ball at the camera and like flexed real hard into it. It's just something I'll never imagine Eli Manning doing, but it's nice.
Yeah, don't confuse.
I know what
Showing more.
you're saying. I know what
Yeah,
you're saying, but I'm just saying it's like the most important parts of Eli Manning of staying cool in the moment, not getting too high and not getting too low, but also
absolutely.
that immediately, and we saw it later on in Eli's career. It's not like it was completely devoid of Eli. He'd throw a touchdown pass and turn around and do his, arm pump. He was psyched.
Mhm.
It's also just a different game with Daniel Jones running the ball. It's a different mentality. Any
Sure.
case, both of those guys, Jalen Hyatt's job is to do what he did against Arizona. And it doesn't matter if it's 3 times per game, 4 times per game, or 1 time in a game. That's his job. Because as soon as he opened up the deep end, everything in the middle became soft. And that's when my third star, Darren Waller, started to eat. And he was already doing well in the first half, but he was an efficient chain mover in chunks, especially in the second half. 6 catches on 8 targets for 76 yards. One of those drops was a pretty heavy hit into his back, and he just kind of like, ball sort of just dribbled out of his hands. And I also thought that he blocked pretty well in this game. Not really known for that, but he was asked to help with blocking, probably like you were saying, because of the offensive line.
The other important thing, to go back to Hyde for a second, is not only is he a star for this game, is now he could be a star for future games, because now all of a sudden there is film and there is tape of what he can do. And that might, you may game plan differently than you would have before for this Giant team. There is a legitimate deep threat, a guy who can get separation. You now have to game plan a little bit differently for, and that's going to loosen up things, closer to the box and closer to the line of scrimmage, I think. So I'm giving the star to Hyatt for, for obviously for yesterday, but I'm also giving him a star for what the effect he's going to have going forward on this team.
Um, I'm going to give an honorable mention to Josh Azudu. I thought in general, the offensive line I thought performed admirably. I thought they were okay. We've seen worse performances. I mean, we'll talk about the level of competition at some point in this episode, but they didn't fail in the face of danger. You had Josh Azudu, who's barely played left tackle, playing left tackle. Marcus McKeithen got his first ever start, didn't embarrass himself. John Michael Schmitz held his own. Ben Bredesen was holding his own till he got hurt. I didn't think Evan Neal played too badly, but I think the biggest hurdle had to be Josh Azudu's to jump, and I thought he did a pretty good job. It wasn't great, it wasn't perfect, but if I were a Cardinals fan and I don't follow the Giants that well, and all I know is that Andrew Thomas is out and they have some kind of backup playing, I would have never guessed he had so little experience at left tackle based on that play. I'll say that much about him. I thought that deserved an honorable mention.
Yeah,
what did you think just generally about the offensive line in this game, given the influx position that they were in?
I think it got better as the game went along. I mean, again, in the beginning, it seemed like, and maybe Daniel Jones is getting a little happy feety, just anticipating that this line's going to break down. But I didn't get that sense of that as the game was going on, in the second half and into the fourth quarter.
I will say at one point, I think it was right at the end of the first half, Daniel Jones totally ran into a sack. It was 100% his fault. Anyway, go on.
No, that's what I was saying, is like, after, last week was an anomaly, I think. Last week was, just a bad matchup against a great defense, and, maybe a defense that had prepared for months for one particular team and stuff. So I wasn't expecting that again. But it seemed, it didn't seem like something that was always in the back of my mind every single play, especially as the game went along. And that's a good thing. It makes me also wonder about Josh Azudu is, if Evan Neal continues to struggle on the right side, do we consider putting him at right tackle? If he,
I don't, I don't think they're going to give up on him, but let's say Evan Neal gets hurt. I don't think it precludes him from putting him out there. Over Matt Parrott, though, that would be pretty wild if he got the first nod over him.
I could certainly see that for sure.
I want to talk a little bit about Saquon Barkley and not the injury yet. We'll talk about that in a minute.
Me too.
I did not give Saquon Barkley a star, though he did have a very good game in some regard. At the second half, there was some phenomenal Saquon Barkley in there. The one touchdown where he reached for the pylon was like a third and, I want to say like 16 or something. It's third and 8. It was some... I was convinced that we were kicking a field goal at that point. Takes a catch, gets to the pylon. That was excellent stuff. He had some other really good runs. Barkley is Barkley as a playmaker. I don't want to... he needs to be more dynamic than just a runner. He needs to be a receiver. And I will say at this point, through 2 weeks in, he is responsible for more interceptions on this team than Daniel Jones is. And that's not a Daniel Jones comment. That's a running back is responsible for more interceptions than the quarterback comment. Two passes going, the one in the Cowboys game is pretty tough, but he has to hold on to that. That is his job as being the second overall pick, earning the contract he has, getting paid what he has, what he would like to be seen as. He can't do that. And then what happened against the Cardinals, going right through his hands, there was no tough break there. That was just bad football, and he was responsible for it. Not for nothing, it's a good thing Daniel Jones took that play seriously and ran it down, because he was the only one in position to make a tackle on that play. I think that Barkley deserves an honorable mention for this game. They certainly don't win this game without Saquon Barkley, but and we can get into the injury, but going forward, he needs to be more accountable in the passing game. He needs to be more effective, and he needs to not do that. Your turn.
You, it's almost like you were reading my brain, because I really was considering giving Saquon a fart. And I know all the things he did in the second half, and I know he did special Saquon things, but something, Saquon Barkley is thought of, especially by this fan base and by, most of the league, as one of the extra special players in this league. And I'm sorry, those two picks are inexcusable, especially for someone who, when people tell me, oh, Barkley's not just he's such a dynamic playmaker out of the backfield, running and passing and everything, and you got to be better. And he has 9 catches this year for 41 yards. That's 4 yards a carry, a reception. That's nothing. That's I need from my main playmaker to be more than that. I need him to be more than, you know, for 13 attempts, 2 interceptions caused by him. It's not good enough. And, I like Saquon Barkley, the person. I have never been one to canonize that guy like a lot of Giant fans have since day one. I don't know if he's ever going to be in my Mount Rushmore of Giant running backs of all time. I mean, he's got, to me, I don't know if I can put him in that same class as Tiki Barber or Joe Morris, Rodney Hampton. I don't know. There's something that is like, I wish he was better than he was. And now he's injured again, so we're going to miss more time with him again. I just, again, we talked about it towards the end of the offseason. What were the best offseason moves? And I think mine was that we held our ground with Barkley. We're not giving him a bigger deal and for more money. And I don't know. He's always, to me, going to be a year-to-year guy. We'll see. And I know he's not going to like that, but I don't know. Just I'm And again, I might be picking nits with the guy because I know he's a really good running back, and again, you all the points you made are very valid in the second half of what he did. But I don't know. I'm not that I'm over him, but I'm kind of like in a. It is what it is with him, and I just wish he was better.
You're just tired of the fact that it's still always going to be a thing because he's not good enough to shut up doubters, and he's also not reliable enough to shut up doubters, right? To prove his worth to doubters.
Yeah,
So it's
I think
always going to
so.
be a thing. I get it. I
Yeah,
don't think that that's picking nits.
yeah. I mean, those two picks. The first one last week, that kind of led to the game being over. And I don't know. I think I judge on a curve, and if it's somebody that's not good as him, I may not be giving considering a fart. But he's Saquon Barkley. He's the supposed face of this franchise. He is pound for pound the best football player on this team. I just think he has to be better.
I don't disagree with that. I get it. I understand the frustration there. I'm tempted to give a fart to Paris Campbell.
Okay.
Um, this guy was brought in here to be, a real difference maker in the slot. They've designed a lot of things of the offense to put the ball in his hands. He's done very little with it. He had 2 drops in this game. One was a slightly errant pass on a screen play. The other one would have been a first down on the end of the first half drive that he dropped, and I believe Jones was sacked the next play. But that would have almost put them in field goal range had he caught that with something like 30 seconds left and like a timeout. So they had that would have been huge. He's just not looking like a difference maker to me. He looks like no different than Richie James, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's a good.
I'm just getting a little frustrated with that. And then with Wan'Dale Robinson kind of rehabbing his way back, with Sterling Shepard, with Cole Beasley in the practice squad, I just don't know what he's delivering that any of those 3 guys couldn't give me.
Other than just availability, I guess.
Yeah, and that's fair. I guess maybe this is like a fart based on my own expectations, but
Yeah, he might just be a placeholder until these guys are available to play again. And man, we didn't sign him to be that placeholder, but your performance on the field kind of dictates where you are going forward.
I think I just expected more from him. I expected, it's not even like they're putting the ball in his hands. It's just nothing special is happening when they do it. They're not really getting first downs when they do it. They're not gaining chunky. He's not making people miss. He's not breaking tackles. It's just it's might as well just be a running play.
Yeah, the most important thing I see for this offense right now, if Hyatt could become a legitimate a legitimate game-breaking threat, and not just a John Ross who runs deep and we catch him once every 6-7 games. Someone where he can develop more of his, become a number 1 receiver. It doesn't have to happen even this year, even if it's like by next year, because we knew there'd be some development time in him. I think that changes everything, because I've said this. I think there's a lot of number 2s on this receivers on this team. A lot of 2s and 3s. Is that Deshaun Watson you're watching?
Just stiff arm somebody. There are a bunch of 2s and 3s on here. One thing that I do think is interesting, and it didn't quite connect in this game, but it almost did. I think that Jalen Hyatt opens up Darius Slayton a lot. They're similar skill set, and I think that pulling Hyatt off the field might eventually lull teams into a false sense of security. Slayton can definitely stretch the field, and Jones went to hit him deep. He didn't really have enough room on the sideline to make it work, but Slayton got like 1 foot in, right at like the 1-yard line in the second half. It didn't work in this game, but I could see it working in future games. And I just think that they brought in Hyatt and they've opened up the deep passing game with it. I already feel confident that is going to work. I've already seen some flashes of that working. They brought in Darren Waller to open up the middle of the field, and I clearly see that working. They brought in Paris Campbell, I thought, to work the short and intermediate area, and I see nothing special. I think that's just really where I land with that.
And I think that's also part of my frustration with Saquon Barkley too.
Yep. No, I totally, yes.
And forget the injury. I'm talking about just as we played 7.5 quarters so far this year. Is as you go through that kind of trinity of deep threat, intermediate, short game. Well, now you got this guy who has probably the best skills of any of them out there. You expect to do things with the ball, and it just hasn't happened yet. So, let's see what happens when he comes back from injury, if that improves. But, we're on year 5 of him or whatever, year 6 of it, and still haven't really seen it yet.
All right, let's switch to the defense here.
Yes, sir.
Holy crap. Immediately, I'm going to launch right into this. I'm giving a fart to the entire run defense. Anyone associated with run defense in any capacity, allowing 200 yards rushing between Joshua Dobbs and James Conner is disgusting. There are some players who I don't know if they want any part of tackling. There was some really, really pathetic defense in the first half. Really bad. And particularly disheartening. It is a sad state of affairs when a fan has his morale squashed. You know what I mean? Like, watching Josh Dobbs run past Micah McFadden and then through Xavier McKinney for a touchdown, I almost left the bar. I was pissed. I was pissed. I don't know what's going on with the run defense. I don't think the pass defense did too poorly. The first half wasn't good in any regard, but I think that they kind of settled down towards the end of the first half. Two drives ended in field goals to end the. It's not like they scored touchdowns on all four drives, or anything like that. But even some on some short fields, they managed to keep them to field goals. And then second half, they shut them down pretty well, other than the opening drive. But now consistently, they brought in so much help to stop the run defense. So much help. And it feels like we're right where we were. The whole defensive line just looks invisible.
Well, at least they had a good pass rush. Oh no, they didn't either. So, I don't know. This is the most perplexing part of this team to me right now. Is we brought Wink Martindale in here to be a guy who's going to cause chaos and confusion up front, to, constantly get in the quarterback's face, to cause, make it easier on your secondary, because all these exotic things are going to happen and you're not going to know from play to play, constant pressure, and we're getting no pressure. And it's not like we have a bunch of scrubs. I mean, we've invested a lot of money, up front. We've invested a lot in draft picks, and we're getting nothing out of it. I had a fart for I had a fart in the entire defense. I gave it a collective fart. I had, Micah McFadden. I had an additional fart for. I had McKinney for a fart for getting run over. I mean, this is Joshua Dobbs. This is a guy that wasn't even on this team a month ago. He's been a perennial backup. His only claim to fame is he's one or two quarterbacks to beat Florida in the last 20 years for Tennessee. That's not that great of an accomplishment for your tombstone. And for a team that, organizationally is probably tanking, players aren't, but organizationally, who knows? It's just a poor effort, especially after what happened the week before, and you wanted to see some motivation and some fire. First, getting embarrassed the week before, and knowing if you fuck up this week, you're going to be 0-2, and we all know the stats, and we all know the probabilities. Season's probably over if they lose, knowing they got to play San Francisco in 4 more days. So, just very disturbing. I don't know, in the short term, what we do to kind of get a pass rush back, just, stop the run. I mean, Connor's a nice running back. He's nothing great. He's not Saquon Barkley. He's not a Hall of Famer, but he looked like a great running back. And I don't know, it just was, when you get into that point in the game when you're like halfway through the first half of this and everything is bothering you, it's just like it magnifies how bad it really was. And I don't know. I don't know, Grump. I'm just kind of at a loss for words.
So here's my frustration: is I can get over the pass defense having struggles. You've moved your best corner into the slot. You've got 2 rookie corners playing on the outside. Nothing against Jason Pinnock, but he had to earn that starting safety spot. He was a question mark coming into the year, so it's not like you have a proven commodity back there. So there's plenty of moving parts in the back end that allow some built-in excuses for the pass defense being a problem.
And I'll live with that.
Exactly, yeah. But my bigger problem is you have on the defensive line veterans like Jihad Ward, Nunez Roches, Ashawn Robinson, big-time names like Leonard Williams and Dexter Lawrence. You have 5 experienced, talented guys with accolades, and I don't understand why we're losing contain. We're getting blocked out of the hole, and it's not one of them. I can't say. I tried to be like, was it Nunez Roches is bad, and he would have 2 or 3 bad plays and then 2 or 3 good ones, and Leonard Williams would get a couple of pressures and then be invisible in other plays. Same thing with Dexter Lawrence. Jihad Ward would chase down a zone read terribly and then make a huge play on the edge later on. It's just inconsistent. It looks just as disjointed and lacking execution as the offense did for 6 quarters. It looks like the run defense is suffering from the same thing. So my only clinging to hope right now, my only silver lining is that there's that common thread where it's not one guy, it's not the scheme, it just looks like on every play, one guy is fucking doing something stupid. And sometimes it's Okereke, sometimes it's McFadden as well. McFadden was particularly bad. I think he probably could deserve his own individual fart in this game.
Yeah, I gave him one. Yeah, he had a
But
lot of missed tackles.
yeah, I mean, that's kind of how I felt about the defense. It just, I don't know what the hell is going on, but they just look disjointed right now.
Well, some of these guys, like Nunez Roches and Ashawn Robinson, they missed a lot of camp, right? So
Yeah.
are they working their way back into?
Probably, but I mean, I went through literally everyone on the line. Everyone was to blame for some bad plays, and everyone deserves credit for some good plays. It's just a mixed bag. It looks like across the board. The biggest thing for me is that this is a defense now through 2 games, and understandably, like, it really isn't 2 games. This is like 6 total quarters, because the second half of that Cowboys game was, I mean, it's not even, you're not playing a game by normal standards anymore. You're kind of just trying to get the hell out of there. They have no takeaways and no sacks. I don't know what to do with that.
Especially when, again, this defense was a bill of goods was sold that it would do just that. It would get the quarterback. You know, even if the sack numbers weren't there, the number of pressures and hits would be high, causing confusion, which would ultimately turn into turnovers on the back end. And we're not getting any of that. Could be an anomaly because it's the first 2 games. We'll definitely be watching, starting this week with San Francisco, see if that's get any better. But it's well, let me ask you, Grump. I mean, right now, what's your biggest concern on this team, offense or defense? Not just short term, but intermediate term for this season.
I guess I don't know. On the one hand, the offense has a built-in excuse when your left tackle is out. But also, I mean, like that's I guess a reason to be more worried about them. But the defense was the one thing I thought that we were going to be able to be like, well, at least there'll be that. I don't know which. I think I'm concerned. I'm most concerned that I'm very concerned. I don't think that I thought I would be that way at this point. I am 2-0 on pens and pencils predictions, though, and I couldn't have been more wrong about like the way they looked. But Jesus.
Wow. Losers lose, Cleveland. Losers lose.
I'm just frustrated. I wanted to get in, I want to ask your opinion before I get into how I feel overall.
Okay.
Just really quickly. Special teams wise, I thought it was a clutch performance by Graham Gano. He had one really important job in this game, was to nail that ending field goal. He's coming off of getting cleated last week, and he nailed it. That's fine. Worth mentioning. Doesn't get a star for it for doing his job. I will say, though, it felt like there were multiple bad snaps from Casey Kreider. Just as a small special teams note, something I noticed, and then eventually, I think Adam Amin said on the broadcast that there was a bad snap on an extra point or something like that. Just something to note, because it's like long snapper is just like a penciled in name at the start of every year. Maybe it shouldn't be that way.
And there was a bad snap last week too. Isn't that where the extra point was missed, or the field goal rather?
I don't know. I was there.
Okay,
I wasn't. Yeah, I just wasn't sure. I mean, also it was pouring rain.
Yeah.
I'll give a pass to the holder, the kicker, the snap.
Yeah.
Everyone gets a pass. It was so disgusting out during that game. But I want your opinion. I know this is like a topic of debate. Do you believe that play calling duties changed at halftime? Brian Dable denied it. I know that it was more visible, at least on the broadcast, that he was talking into the microphone more, seemed to be looking at the play sheet more, but he did have the play sheet the whole game. So I don't know. I want your opinion.
I think it's possible. I also don't think it's a big deal. I think people are making it out to be like a major thing. Like, everybody loved Mike Kafka, and all of a sudden, Dable's calling plays, and the implication is like he should be calling plays going forward. And I disagree.
Okay.
I I don't know if he was necessarily calling plays. I think he was more involved in the play calling decision making in the sometimes like, if you let your offensive coordinator, he's going to call his game, and I think he might have been more in the headset saying, I think be more aggressive with the call. Like for example, I don't think he was actually saying, Spider X19YZ fuckface or whatever. But I definitely think he was more involved in Capta's game plan. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no. I think I agree with that. I definitely agree that I don't think it's as big a deal as it's being made. I think also like sometimes it's Mike Kafka's a second-year offensive coordinator. He hasn't been in every situation ever. He doesn't know everything, and it's the middle of a game. I don't know that this is the case, but if there's a situation where it's just like Brian Dable understands what's going on, he knows how to handle this. Just I'm taking over play calling, or for this drive, let me get it started. You'll see. Sometimes shit like that. Sometimes situations you go with the more experienced hand or something like that. If it did happen, I'm not convinced that it did.
I'm not either.
Do you think anything major happened at halftime, or do you think things just kind of got put together?
I think the decision was made, as led by that first deep pass. Is if we're going to get back into this game, we need to score quickly. We can't be methodical down the field, and by not being methodical down the field, saying we're going to have to go down fighting, and so be it. If the offensive line can't hold protection long enough to get deep passes off, so be it. But when you need we were down 4 scores at halftime?
It was 20-0.
20-0.
It's technically 3.
3 scores, yeah. You can't do the playing for first downs and just getting, taking all underneath stuff and everything and little dump offs and everything. You got to score quick. And I think that was the philosophical decision at halftime was made is, take out the playbook, which has our big plays in it, and let's run that. And I think that's what happened.
I think I agree with you. All right, so look, I took a lot of heat. I still am taking a lot of heat on Twitter for my immediate reaction to this game, which, by the way, was said in jest, in a sigh of relief, which was congratulations, Giants, for beating the Birmingham Stallions with an eye roll emoji. But look, it's extremely concerning that the Giants needed a historic comeback to defeat the hapless Cardinals. That's a fair point that you can bring up that I should be happy with a historic comeback, and I am. I am happy. I was happy in the moment. I am still happy. That's like a dark humor sigh of relief. But it still bears repeating that this wasn't the Cowboys or a division rival or anyone that's being considered in the playoff hunt whatsoever that required a historic comeback in order to win. It's a team that the starting quarterback was brought in 1 month ago. Their star quarterback is hurt. They cut the backup who knew the offense. They brought in a brand new guy who doesn't know anything. They sat their best player, who's a star safety. And they also sat 2 other defenders. This is a team that is actively trying to lose at the front office level, and it required, the best comeback in Giants history since like World War II or something like that. This was supposed to be like a get-right game for them, and it may still have turned out that way. I'm not shutting the door on that, but they nearly didn't get right. And it was a situation that was perfectly designed for them to get right. At the end of the day, though, really, at the end of the day, where that comment comes from, where that feeling comes from, was something that we have been saying for literally months now, probably since February. This year was not about looking at the score or the win and loss column. This year was about seeing improvement on the field. And through 8 quarters, I have seen 6 quarters of negative performance, worse than last year. Not better, not the same. So yes, while I'm happy that the 2 quarters, the 1/3 of the season that I've seen so far was exactly how it was electric. I'm not going to deny that 5 drives with 4 touchdowns and a game-winning field goal is not electric. It is. It's great, and I'm happy with it. But I am supposed to be judging the product on the field this year. And what I saw on the field is 2/3 of awful fucking football. And I'm not going to just be happy with that. My name's literally Football Grump. Anyway, how do you feel after all of that? That's how I've been feeling for like a full 24 hours now.
Well, a quick follow-up question for you before I launch into my thing. So, as that fourth quarter is unfolding, we take the lead. Are you at the bar jumping up and down, happy, relieved, or just like shaking your head like Jesus Christ, it's about time we did this?
I
Because
left. I left at halftime and went home. I watched from home for the rest of it. For that,
oh,
that was
interesting.
for alcohol reasons.
Okay.
So I mean, I was nervous. I was
Yeah.
pacing around. I was, in the moment. It still felt like anything could still go wrong. I didn't have a strong sense of. I knew Gano could make the. I just didn't know the snap, the hold, the penalty. Who the hell knows? It could have been blocked and returned for a touchdown with our current historical relevance. So I was nervous. As soon as he kicked it, I felt relieved. I felt very confident after taking the lead. Our first lead of the game, by the way. After taking that
First thing
lead,
of the season.
that's also true. Yeah. At that point, I felt confident that we were going to win, and then it felt like all of this tension I didn't know I had in my shoulders built up. Was just like, there it goes. Okay, all right. And then you have that moment. It's like, Jesus Christ, I really was that stressed out over the fucking Cardinals. This shouldn't happen. This was not supposed to happen this year.
Yeah.
And yes, in the moment I you sit next to me. You know me in the moment in a losing season, I am up and down cheering when we score touchdowns.
Yeah.
When playoffs are out of the picture, that doesn't matter to me in the moment. So you know how I am in the moment. It
Right.
just doesn't take that long to take it into context. I mean, this was supposed to be the year where this was a business trip.
Mhm. I think last week did a lot for me. If last week doesn't happen, I would have been like, okay, I would have been a lot more into the excitement of the comeback and like oh, I can't believe we're coming. This is great. This comeback is happening. To me, the building up from last week and the first half was just like the weight of the what is the story with us going forward really negated any kind of like jumping up and down, touchdown, touchdown, touchdown. So I'm at this bar and it's a mixed group. There's probably I don't know, I'd say a third Giant fans, a third Jet fans, and a third just there. There's a third, betting on horse racing. It's one of those bars. Um, and the Giant fans that were there were just like so giddy and happy, and just like it's like they didn't watch last week or they don't know what's going on with this team. It was just like, I'm here to watch. It's Sunday. I'm here to watch the Giants. Oh, the first half was a bummer. This is exciting. And then celebration when they kicked the field goal. And I just wasn't one who was jumping up and down with them. I was just kind of, again, like you said, the first thought in my mind was, thank Christ we're not 0-2 because this season's over. And I don't want the season to be over on September 17th. So, there's all these different range of emotions that are going through my head of, the bigger problems are outweighing the joy of a historic comeback. And I really don't know what to make of this team right now. Um, even if we are starting to right the ship right now, our left tackle, our running back, another offensive lineman are out. That's scary. You know, I know San Francisco is coming this week. I know this is, you know, less than ideal from a schedule standpoint, from a 4 days off standpoint, a great team playing standpoint. I don't know. I don't know what this team is right now. Is this team the first half that can't get off the field against bad offenses? A team that, like you said, just looks completely disjointed. I think the disjointed enough will get better as they keep playing. I think now that we're in the weekly grind of the schedule, and of course it sucks that now there's a short week, so we're off schedule, and then there's a break after, so we have to get back onto a schedule. At this point now, nothing would surprise me with this team. This team ends up going 5-12 or goes 10-7. I honestly don't know. And this is where we're going to see how this coaching staff is. I think fair or not, I think the honeymoon period for this coaching staff is over. Now, don't take that to mean I'm ready to move on from this coaching staff. I'm not saying that at all. I think hey, Dable's great. He's at Ranger games. He can do no wrong. They made the playoffs in the first year. Everything he touches turns to gold. I think that honeymoon phase is done. Now it's time to see what him and this coaching staff will do with this team with, you know, problems they're going to have, being shorthanded in certain positions and stuff. Does this team continue to look lethargic? I mean, if they lose to San Francisco, lose to San Francisco, I don't want that team to come out and just look completely lethargic, completely, the game being taken to them instead of them trying to impose any of their own will to it. If I see fight, I'm going to I'm going to start feeling better. Going into the break, we'll come back and we'll go. If I see a team that's just out of it from minute one, I'm going to be very concerned about this season. And we need this season to be the springboard for next year and the year after for momentum. Will Is this the nucleus of a team that could be a Super Bowl contender in a couple of years, or is this just, well, they got lucky last year because of the schedule, and it's still a lot more we work to do. So I right now am head scratching. I don't know what to think. Next week's not going to really solve anything for us, but let's just start playing games and see where we go.
Look, all I'm saying is I watched Detroit, Seattle at 1 o'clock. And when I look around the league, we are a team that is fighting for a wild card spot because we don't think that we're in Philly's class right now. We have just been shown up very hard by Dallas. It is important that we are better than both Seattle and Detroit. And in watching that game, we don't look better than either of those teams.
Yeah.
And when I look around the league with Detroit and Minnesota in the north, with Seattle and San Francisco in the west, it's difficult to see a spot after. I know it's 2 weeks. I understand what I'm saying here is a little ridiculous, but after 2 weeks, this team doesn't look like a wild card team. Just saying. So, I mean, excuse me for being somewhat disappointed by the end result of the cumulative 2 weeks instead of the end result of the final 5 seconds. So, I am happy. Look, I am happy. We're 1-1. Being 0-2, you'd see a much grumpier Grump on the screen.
I'm going to say, to piggyback what you just said, though, I don't see a wild card team right now, but I see a potential ceiling where it certainly can be.
Sure. Yes.
I mean, I think there's some teams that like this Arizona team, they look good in the first half, right, for them, but that's the absolute ceiling of what this team can be. They're not a wild card team. They're not going to the playoffs. You see stuff with this Giants team that, there are green shoots of what this team can be that says this is a wild card team. An emergence of Hyatt, and hopefully Barkley's not out for too long. I know I bagged on him before, but he is still really, really good and really, really important. A defense that has done nothing but has proven guys on it who can do things up front, and a secondary that's going to get better. So I'm not as hopeless that, we've hit the ceiling of this team. I think this team can get better as the season goes on. Schedule doesn't help much, but so that's kind of where I'm still cautiously optimistic that the ship can be righted. But it needs to be, time for talk is over, and the time for, well, we did this last year and, rah-rah from the coach or anything like that. They have to show it on the field now.
Talk is cheap, play the game.
The shirt says.
The Giants are still in last place in the NFC East. They're at 1-1. Washington eked out a win over Denver, 35-33. You called that one, right? Or did I call that one?
I believe I did not. I did not. I said going out to the higher elevation, I thought Washington would not win.
Yeah, it was close though. We were pretty close on that one. Philly beat Minnesota 34-28 on Thursday night when we were recording, and Dallas beat the New York Jets at the same time the Giants beat the Arizona Cardinals 30-10. So part of the reason why I left that bar is because the Giants were playing so badly that they switched the audio from the Giants game to the Jets game.
Ooh.
So,
wow.
And I don't blame them. So I left at halftime.
Any thoughts on the Cowboys scoring 30 points on the Jets defense?
No.
Okay.
No, because I mean that they are still riding their defense being the lead dog there. Look, I don't know what the end of the story is for Dallas this year, but I know the end of the story for Dallas is not winning a Super Bowl, and Dan Quinn is he's going to get a head coaching offer at the end of this year. And I don't know. Well, let me ask you this. Would you rather get a head coaching opportunity from a Power 5 school or an NFL job? I know which one pays more money. I'm just asking which one's the better quality of life for a coach, you think?
Say the choices again.
A head coaching job with an NFL team or a Power 5 school?
Oh, NFL. I don't even think it's even close.
Really?
Yeah.
I feel like your leash at the NFL level is so short, especially with like a defensive coordinator.
Not,
Uh,
not so much in college anymore, though. I mean, the Power Five schools, their leashes are shorter and shorter.
I guess so, yeah.
There's no more 5, 6 years anymore, and you have to, remember when you are a college football head coach, you are also the general manager.
Yeah, but
You are
now you can
responsible,
offer money, so
but you still have to recruit.
right. But it just
you
doesn't. You're right, but I think it's easier to recruit kids and develop them because you're pulling from a larger pool, and also, you're not restricted by the cap. You have other restrictions like academic standards and things like that, but I think they're easier to get around than the hard cap.
Yeah, but as a head coach, you're not responsible for getting players in the NFL like you are in college. I mean, it's you're kind of working with the GM to what players fit what you're looking to do, but your job as the head coach in college is to, you know, you have to go out and close the deal with all of these guys.
I understand. What does that have to do with getting guys to the NFL? That's not their job.
No, getting guys onto your college roster.
Oh, yeah, I understand that. I don't
mean,
think that's as hard as it is to get.
It is very hard because it's just you have to start those relationships when these kids are like in ninth grade, and
I get that.
You have to develop the relationships with these high school coaches, and you have to develop relationships with all of these All-American teams and all of these 7-on-7s and all of these camps and all of this shit. I mean, that
I just feel like it's different though, because like once you have those relationships though, and I understand that you're saying that there's more behind the scenes legwork, but once you've done that legwork, I think it's easier to get a kid to go to your school than it is to get around the hard cap requirements and getting a 5-star recruit to choose your school when you've known them for 6 years or whatever it is probably easier than it is to get the top corner free agent at the NFL onto your roster and make it fit under the cap.
Right.
Maybe not. I don't know. There's some cap
true.
gymnastics. I feel like the behind the scenes legwork takes more time, but is not nearly as difficult to deal with as it is the immediate thing as the hard cap.
Yeah, but also dealing with the hard cap is the GM's job, not yours.
Yeah, you're right. I think maybe you're right. It's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. Take the NFL job because it pays better.
I think because it pays better, it's bigger clout. It's Now the question also is for someone like a Dan Quinn, who's probably going to get another head coaching job. How much do you factor in that he failed his first time as a head coach? Would you be so willing to run out because he has a great defense to say, I'm giving this guy another chance? Is he like on the top of like your board, or are you more willing to either get a head coach that was recently a guy who is a head coach, or a coordinator who for his first job as a head coach?
I think that focusing on his quote-unquote failure in his first attempt at a head coach is silly. I think maybe focus on the positive. He went to a Super Bowl and had a 28-3 halftime lead in that Super Bowl. He also won one as a defensive coordinator in Seattle. He was the defensive coordinator for a national championship team. Is that correct?
Yes.
I think that the successes outweigh the perceived. Is it really a failure to have gone to a Super Bowl and lost?
No,
There were failures in that game. I think you can attribute them to his offensive coordinator. I think it's interesting to see how he interviews in what he says about hiring an offensive coordinator and what he says about that game. Certainly something I would ask, but I wouldn't have the hangups as that as a failure over all of the positives. I mean, the moment he left Atlanta and went to Dallas, their defense got way better. I
yeah. How long was he still in the job from the Super Bowl to getting fired?
thought it was only the year after.
It was 1 year after.
I thought he had one season after that, and then he was on the outs. I think he even got fired. Like he was like one of those ones that got it on Black Monday or whatever they call it, Pink Monday, Black Monday. Well, it's a pink slip, right? Is it Pink Monday?
It's Black Monday. I
It
think,
is Black Monday. Okay, whatever. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But me personally, I understand. But I think that he's going to get a head coaching job. I'm pretty sure.
I think so. I mean, I think someone like him. That's where ego comes in, and
Well, it's like if Jonathan Gannon got one.
Yeah. I guess if you can be one of the best coordinators in the league, maybe stay in your lane and just be the best coordinator you can be. I mean, these guys make a lot of money now too.
Yeah, I'm sure Dallas probably is going to pay the most for a coordinator.
Sure. I mean, you think guys like Norv Turner and Wade Phillips, they can go back and redo their career. You think they'd rather have just said, I'm just going to stick being coordinator the entire time. Maybe take one shot at being a head coach and it didn't work out. Just go back and just be, someone like a Monty Kiffin or someone who's just as known as just
Jack Del Rio.
Yeah, just a great coordinator, a Hall of Fame level coordinator.
Maybe. I don't know. I can understand it. I wouldn't criticize them for making that decision.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I still think that that's the end game, though. I think. Well, do you want to remain a badass coordinator if you feel like the head coach is the one preventing you from winning Super Bowls, which might be the problem in Dallas? I mean, that's a fair reason to want to leave.
Would you ultimately be shocked if this Cowboy team fails in the playoffs again, that McCarthy gets run and Quinn takes over?
As interim head coach or as head coach
as
next
head
year?
coach. Head coach next year. Or maybe if that doesn't happen this season, then next season. McCarthy gets this year, he's calling plays and stuff. They go, let's say 13-3 and they lose in the playoffs. And it happens again next year and they get bounced early.
I don't know. I feel like it's weird. It's a weird scenario to fire your head coach. And actually, didn't that happen to Jason Garrett? That did happen to Jason Garrett. He was named interim head coach and then took over.
Mm-hmm.
I could see it, I guess.
I mean, Jerry Jones has his boys that he loves.
I just don't know if Dan Quinn is agreeable enough to be a head coach for Jerry Jones.
Jerry Jones is also how old?
Like 100 million.
I mean, probably wouldn't play out until 2025 anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, Jerry Jones is, I can't see him being the in control of the Cowboys much longer.
Mr. Burns is still in The Simpsons after like 30 years, so who knows? All right, that's an episode.
But Bart's also still 9.
That's true, and still in detention.
That's true.
That's an episode. Giants 31, Cardinals 28. I'm happy to report a victory. We have a short week coming up, so we will have an episode for you Thursday morning that we're going to record Wednesday night. Sheesh. Short week.
Might have a special guest on that episode too.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Apparently.
You may know her.
Okay.
But, just keep tuned in.
That episode will be Thursday morning on all the regular outlets, iTunes, SoundCloud, Spotify, and of course YouTube. So we will see you there. Until then, go Giants.
Go Giants.